The space station floated in the darkness between stars. It was called Ascendancy Prime, and it was the largest structure ever built by the hegemony. Crystal towers rose from its surface. Like frozen flames, lights of 100 colors glowed from 10,000 windows. Ships from 12 different species docked at its ports, carrying diplomats who would decide the future of the galaxy. Ambassador Park walked through the main corridor with small, careful steps. She was a human woman of 43 years with black hair pulled back in a simple style and eyes that noticed everything. She wore the formal dress of the Terran Republic, dark blue with silver edges. To the aliens around her, she looked small, weak, unimportant. This was exactly what she wanted them to think. Behind her walked a man named. He was not tall, he was not large. His body was lean, and his muscles were the kind that came from use, not from show. His hair was cut short and his face showed nothing, no emotion, no thought, just patience, the kind of patience that a hunter learns when waiting for dangerous prey. Had served in the Terran Republic Special Forces for 12 years. He had fought in jungles where the plants tried to eat you. He had survived deserts where the sun could cook a man alive. He had hunted terrorists in underground cities and rescued hostages from ships falling into black holes. Now he protected diplomats. It was supposed to be an easy job. It never was. The guards watched them pass with compound eyes that could see in 16 directions at once. They were the rulers of this part of the galaxy. They stood 3 m tall with bodies covered in black chitin that gleamed like polished stone. Their heads were triangular with mandibles that could cut through metal. They had ruled for 10,000 years, and they believed they would rule forever. They looked at the humans the way a lion looks at a mouse, barely worth noticing. High Sovereign awaited in the summit chamber. She was the leader of the hegemony, and her body was larger than the guards, covered in golden patterns that showed her royal blood. When she spoke, her mandibles clicked together in a rhythm that the translator turned into words. The Terrans are here as observers only, she announced to the gathered delegates. Their species has not yet earned voting rights. They may watch. They may not speak. Bowed her head. We are honored to be here, High Sovereign. We come only to learn from the wisdom of elder races. Stood 3 steps behind her, hands clasped in front of his body. His eyes moved constantly, looking at everything. The positions of the guards, the locations of the doors, the way the air moved through the ventilation system. The small details that most people never noticed. Something was wrong. He could not say what it was, not yet. But his body knew. 12 years of combat had taught his body to recognize danger before his mind could understand it. His heart beat a little faster, his muscles tensed a little, his senses sharpened, until he could hear the breath of the Delegate 3 rose away. The summit chamber was beautiful. Crystal walls curved upward to a ceiling that showed the stars outside. Floating platforms held delegates from 12 species. They were there with their 6 limbs and their skin that changed color. With their emotions, they floated in containment suits, their gaseous bodies glowing with soft light. They were there, looking like walking trees. They were there, their metal bodies humming with electricity. All of them looked down on the humans. This did not bother. She had been a diplomat for 15 years. She knew that respect was earned, not given, and she knew that humans had a way of surprising Those who underestimated them. Watch the guards shift their positions. They moved slowly, casually, as if they were simply adjusting for comfort, but military training did not allow for casual movement. Every step a soldier took had a purpose, and these guards were moving toward the exits. He watched the Sovereign's second assistant. The alien had not blinked in 47 minutes, blinked every 30 seconds on average. This one's eyes were fixed, focused, waiting for something. He noticed the air, the atmosphere mix had changed in the last hour. More nitrogen, less oxygen, still safe for humans, but the balance was shifting toward something else, something that would be comfortable for a different species. Leaned forward just enough that could hear his whisper, "Ambassador, we need to leave now." Smile never changed. She had learned long ago to hide her reactions. Session has not started. Something is wrong. The guards are out of position. The air is changing. The Sovereign's people are acting strange. If we leave now, we insult the hegemony. The Republic cannot afford that. If we stay, we might not leave at all. Was quiet for a moment. She trusted. She had seen him work for 2 years, and she knew that he never worried without reason, but diplomacy required risks. Sometimes you had to walk into danger with your eyes open and hope that your skills would bring you out again. 5 more minutes, she said. If nothing happens, we will find a reason to step out. Nodded. His hand moved slightly, just enough to loosen the pulse pistol in his thigh holster. The guards had scanned it when they arrived and laughed. They called it a primitive toy. They did not understand what humans could do with primitive toys. The summit was about to begin. Hi. Sovereign raised her clawed hand for silence. The delegates settled into their seats. Recording devices activated. The history of the galaxy was about to be written. Then the lights went out. The chamber fell into complete darkness. Not the gentle dimming of a power failure, but instant, total blackness. The kind of darkness that happened only when someone wanted it to happen. Screams erupted in a dozen alien languages. Bodies crashed into each other as delegates tried to run. Guards shouted orders that no one followed, moved. His hand found wrist in the darkness. His fingers wrapped around her arm with gentle strength, and he pulled her down. Behind the Terran delegation's console, the metal surface was thick enough to stop most weapons. It would have to be enough. His other hand drew the pulse pistol. His thumb found the activation switch. By feel, the weapon hummed to life, ready to fire. Emergency lights flickered on, pale blue bioluminescence that cast strain shadows across the chamber. In that cold light, saw figures dropping from the ventilation system above. They wore sealed tactical suits, and they carried weapons that glowed with deadly energy. They were not. They were IA species that served the hegemony in ways that could never be made official. Fanatics who believed they were chosen by the universe to rule all life. Assassins who did the dirty work that the hegemony could not acknowledge. The first shot struck the ambassador. Her six-limbed body crumpled to the floor, a smoking hole where her heart had been. The second shot killed the trade representative. The third, fourth, and fifth shots ruptured the containment suits of the delegation, and their gaseous bodies scattered into the air like smoke in wind. They were killing everyone. Pressed her hand over her mouth to stop herself from screaming, her diplomatic training had not prepared her for this. Nothing had prepared her for this. Watch the pattern of death, the eye moved with military precision, clearing the chamber section by section, but they were avoiding certain areas, certain people. The delegation stood untouched in the center of the carnage. "This is a purge," he whispered. "They are killing everyone who would vote against the hegemony." High Sovereign stood among the bodies, her compound eyes reflecting the blue emergency light. She showed no fear, no surprise. She had known this would happen. She had ordered it to happen. "Regrettable," she announced, her translator voice calm and cold. "Terrorists have attacked our sacred summit. The hegemony will investigate thoroughly." Eye assassin turned toward the Terran console. Its weapon rose, targeting system locking onto the heat signatures hidden behind the metal surface. Stood up. The time for hiding was over. The eye assassin saw rise from behind the console, its targeting system locked onto his body, calculating the shot that would end his life. The alien was fast. Its muscles had been enhanced with combat drugs. Its reflexes had been sharpened with neural implants. By every measure that the galaxy used to judge warriors, it was superior to the small humans standing before it. But the eye did not know what humans really were. Moved before the alien could fire. He did not think about moving. His body simply acted, driven by 12 years of training and a lifetime of fear. On Earth, hesitation meant death. Animals that hunted humans did not give second chances. The weather that tried to kill humans did not wait for them to prepare. Evolution had built the response deep into human bones and had learned to turn that fear into speed. The plasma bolt burned through the air. Where he had been standing, it struck the console behind him, melting metal and glass into a smoking crater, but was no longer there. He came up inside the assassin's guard, too close for the rifle to track. I tried to step back, tried to create distance, but humans were pursued. Predators, humans chased their prey until it could not run anymore. Humans never stopped. His palm struck the alien's throat. He put his whole body behind the blow, using the rotation of his hips and the drive of his legs. Humans had evolved to throw objects with deadly force. They were the only species in the galaxy that could kill at a distance with nothing but a rock and an arm. That same throwing power flowed through strike. The eye's chitin armor cracked. The alien made a wet choking sound as its respiratory tubes collapsed. It fell to the ground, legs kicking weakly, and then it stopped moving. Took its rifle. The chamber went quiet. The other eye assassins had frozen in place, their weapons half raised, their compound eyes fixed on the human who had just killed one of their best warriors with his bare hands. "You killed an eye," one of them said. Its voice came through its helmet. Speaker rough with static and disbelief. "With your hands, that is not possible. Check the rifle, plasma weapon. Standard hegemony design, 30 shots per charge." His fingers found the controls. By instinct, all weapons worked on the same basic principles, and he had trained with hundreds of different models. "I have killed worse things than you," he said. His voice was flat, calm, empty of emotion. "On Earth we have animals that hunt humans for food. We have storms that can flatten cities. We have bacteria that eat you from the inside. while you are still alive. He raised the rifle. You are not. Special. High Sovereign A's mandibles clicked. With anger, her compound eyes had seen something that disturbed her, something that made her reconsider everything she believed about humans. Kill the Terran, she commanded. Kill them both now. 12I moved at once. Ambassador watched from behind the shattered console, her diplomatic training forgotten. She had known for 2 years. She had seen him train, seen him prepare, seen him stand guard through long nights of negotiation. She had thought she understood what he was capable of. She had not understood anything. Did not stand and fight. That would have been stupid. 12 against 1 were bad odds even for. Instead he moved through the chaos like water flowing through rocks. He used the panicking delegates as cover. He used the floating platforms as shields. He used the broken consoles and fallen bodies and scattered debris as obstacles that the eye had to navigate. The aliens were fast, but they were not used to fighting in disorder. Their training had prepared them for clean operations against weak targets. They had never faced a human who fought like an animal cornered by predators. Shot the first assassin through the eye. The eye's helmet was designed to stop most weapons, but the plasma bolt found the small gap where the visor met the armor. The alien fell without a sound. The second assassin tried to flank him. Had expected this. He had already mapped the chamber in his mind, tracking every position and every movement. He spun and fired twice, catching the alien in the throat and the chest. The third and fourth assassins came together, covering each other's approach. Did not have time to shoot them both. He fired once, killing the one on the left, then threw himself to the side as the other's plasma bolt scorched the air beside his head. He lost the rifle when the fourth assassin tackled him. The alien was heavy, its enhanced muscles pressing down on his body. Chitin claws reached for his throat, trying to tear out his windpipe. Head butted it. Human skulls were thick. Evolution had reinforced them to protect the large brains that made humans dangerous. The blow cracked the alien's faceplate and stunned it for a single second. That was enough. His fingers found the ceremonial blade that the dead ambassador had worn on her belt. He had noticed it when they first entered the chamber. He had calculated how to reach it if he ever needed a weapon. Now his hand closed around the handle, and he drove the blade up through the gap in the eye's armor. The fifth assassin died the same way, and the sixth. The seventh assassin was smarter. It kept its distance, using its plasma rifle to pin behind a fallen platform. It was patient, waiting for its companions to circle around and catch. The human in a crossfire looked at the viewport beside him. The thick glass showed the stars outside, beautiful and cold. He looked at the control panel for the emergency seals. He calculated the stations, rotation, the direction of the pressure differential, the positions of the remaining assassins. Then he shot the viewport. The glass did not shatter, it cracked. And the crack spread, and then a section of it blew outward into space. Emergency seal tried to close, but had shot that too. Air screamed out of the chamber, and everything that was not bolted down flew toward the breach. 4 eye assassins died in the decompression. Their suits were designed for many things, but not for sudden vacuum exposure. Their bodies tumbled out into space, joining the glass and debris in a cloud of death. The emergency systems finally sealed the breach. The screaming stopped. The remaining air stabilized. Stood in the wreckage, chest heaving. Blood running from a cut on his forehead. The blood was red, human red. The color of iron, the color of survival, the color of a species that had learned to bleed and keep fighting. The 11th eye dropped its weapon and raised its hands. Mercy, it said in broken galactic standard, please. Mercy did not speak that language. When the last assassin fell, he stood alone in the center of the chamber. Bodies lay around him, some alien and some not. The survivors had pressed themselves against the walls, trying to make themselves small, trying not to attract the attention of the human who had just killed 12 warriors in less than 10 minutes. Ambassador rose from behind the console. Her formal dress was torn and stained with blood that was not her own. Her hands were shaking, but her eyes were clear and her voice was steady when she spoke. What do we do now? He looked at her, then at High Sovereign. The ruler had not moved during the entire fight. She had watched with her thousand-faceted eyes as her plan fell apart, as her assassins died one by one, as a single human did what should have been impossible. Now said, we make them pay. He walked toward the High Sovereign, his footsteps leaving bloody prints on the crystal floor. The guards raised their weapons, but they did not fire. They had seen what this human could do. They did not want to be next. I took a step backward. It was small, just a single step, but it was the first time in recorded history that a ruler had retreated from a single opponent. The galaxy would never be the same. The summit chamber smelled of blood and burning. Smoke rose from the damaged console. Emergency lights cast everything in pale blue shadows. The bodies of delegates from a dozen species lay scattered across the floor, their lives ended by eye weapons. Among them lay the assassins themselves, killed by a single human who now stood in the center of the carnage. Walked toward High Sovereign with slow, deliberate steps. He was not in a hurry. The fighting was over. Now came the part that required words. You ordered this, he said. His voice was calm, but something cold lived behind his words. You brought these assassins here to kill everyone who would vote against your expansion. You turned this summit into a slaughterhouse. A's mandibles clicked with what her species used for anger. You have no proof, human. You have only accusations and corpses. I have more than that. Reached into the armor of the dead eye squad leader. His fingers found the communication unit that all field commanders carried. The device was small, built into the suit's chest plate, designed to record all orders and transmissions for later review. It was a standard military practice, meant to prevent disputes about who had said what during an operation. The eye had not expected anyone to survive long enough to find it. Every order you gave them is stored here, said. He held up the device so the surviving delegates could see every target you named, every instruction about who to kill and who to spare. Human code breakers are very good at their job. When they examine this, they will find everything. For the first time, something like worry crossed A's alien face. Her compound eyes shifted, looking for options, looking for escape, but there was no escape from the truth. The surviving delegates were emerging from their hiding places, the ones who had been too unimportant to kill, they ones who had hidden behind furniture and fallen bodies, the ones who had simply been lucky. They looked at the high sovereign with new eyes, and what they felt was not respect. It was hate. The trade minister, her metal body, dented and scratched from the chaos, pointed a mechanical arm at A. 17 of my colleagues are dead. 17 members of the delegation murdered by assassins. You sent. The hegemony denies all involvement, A. said, but her voice had lost its power. This was a terrorist attack. We will investigate. You will do nothing. Ambassador stepped forward, her small body somehow commanding in the blue emergency light. Her diplomatic smile was gone. In its place was something harder, something that came from a species that had survived by fighting instead of surrendering. The Terran Republic has already received the transmission I sent. When the attack began, our emergency response fleet is 4 minutes away. They were waiting at the edge of the system. A's mandibles froze. You knew. We suspected. Humans are paranoid by nature. High sovereign, we always expect something to go wrong. We always prepare for the worst. S's voice was ice. We knew you would never allow a fair vote on the Rim world's expansion. We knew you would find a way to remove opposition. We just did not know what form it would take. You set a trap. A's translator made the words sound mechanical, but the fury behind them was clear. You used your own safety as bait. We came to a diplomatic summit in good faith. You turned it into a massacre. Gestured at the bodies around them. Every delegate here saw what happened. Every survivor will tell their government what the hegemony has done. You have destroyed 10,000 years of authority in a single hour. The guards looked at each other with uncertainty. Their loyalty was to the hegemony, but the hegemony had just been exposed as murderers. They had sworn oaths to protect civilized order, and their own leader had shattered that order beyond repair. One of them lowered his weapon. Then another. Then all of them. High Sovereign A was alone. Stopped 3M from her, close enough to strike if she tried anything, close enough for her compound eyes to see every detail of his bloody face. He was not a large man. He was not an impressive physical specimen by human standards, but he had killed 12 warriors in less than 10 minutes, and now he stood before the ruler of the most powerful empire in the galaxy. Do you understand now? He asked quietly. Do you understand what humans are? A did not answer. We come from a world that tried to kill us every day. Continued. Every creature on Earth is a survivor. Every plant, every animal, every bacteria that lives in our soil. 4 billion years of evolution, 4 billion years of death made us what we are. We learned to fear because fear kept us alive. We learned to fight because running was not always possible. We learned to endure because our world gave no mercy to those who gave up. He leaned closer, and his voice dropped to a whisper. You called us primitives. You laughed at our weapons and our ships and our short history, but you forgot what primitives are capable of. You forgot that every advanced species was once primitive. 2. You forgot that the universe favors survivors, not rulers. I finally spoke. You cannot win a war against the hegemony. Our fleets are 10,000 strong. Our armies number in the billions. You are one small species on one small world. We are not going to fight a war. Stepped back. We are going to let you destroy yourself. The viewport showed a flash of light as ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel Terran Republic vessels there. Hulls painted with the blue and silver of Earth's diplomatic corps. They were not warships, but they carried weapons capable of defending themselves. More importantly, they carried communication arrays that could broadcast across the entire galaxy. The truth was about to spread. Within hours, every inhabited world would see the footage from Ascendancy Prime. They would see the eye assassins killing delegates. They would see High Sovereign standing untouched among the bodies. They would hear the recordings from the squad leader's communication unit proving that she had ordered the massacre. Within days, the outrage would begin. Within weeks, alliances would fracture. Within months, rebellions would start. The hegemony had stood for 10,000 years because its subjects believed in its legitimacy, because they thought they had earned the right to rule through wisdom and strength and ancient tradition. That belief was dead now, killed by plasma bolts in political assassination. You should have ignored us, said. You should have let us sit in the corner and watch, but you decided we were too weak to matter. You decided we were not worth considering, and that mistake has cost you everything. Ambassador moved to stand beside her bodyguard. Her voice carried across the ruined chamber, reaching every survivor, every recording device, every witness who would carry this story to the stars. The Terran Republic calls for an emergency session of the Galactic. Conquered, we demand a full investigation into the events of this day. We demand accountability for the hegemony's actions, and we demand that the voices silenced by violence be given their due respect. She looked at the bodies of the delegates who had died, though with their color-changing skin now pale and still, though their gaseous forms dissipated into nothing, though their tree-like bodies burned and broken. They came here in peace. They died believing in diplomacy. We will not let their deaths be meaningless. The surviving delegates began to move. They formed a rough line behind, standing together in a way they had never done before. Species that had distrusted each other for centuries now, united by common horror, enemies becoming allies because they had seen what the alternative looked like. Watched her empire crumble around her, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. The age of dominance was ending. The age of humanity was about to begin. The Terran Republic ships docked with Ascendancy Prime 1 hour after the massacre ended. Marines in sealed combat armor moved through the corridors, securing sections and treating the wounded. Medical teams tended to survivors from a dozen species, learning alien biology on the spot because there was no time for specialists. Sat in a corner of the summit chamber, while a human medic cleaned the cuts on his face. The wounds were not serious. He had suffered worse in training exercises, but the medic insisted, and he was too tired to argue. Ambassador was everywhere at once. She coordinated with the ship captains, organized the survivors, arranged for secure communications with Earth, and kept High Sovereign A under close guard. The ruler had not resisted when Republic Marines surrounded her. She had simply stood in place, her compound eyes watching everything, calculating options that no longer existed. The broadcast has reached 700 worlds. Communications officer reported. Response is significant. Significant was an understatement. The galaxy was on fire with outrage. On the crowds gathered outside the hegemony embassy, throwing stones at the guards and demanding justice for their murdered ambassador. On the Ford World's factory shut down as workers refused to produce goods for markets. On the forest planets, the great councils declared an immediate end to all trade agreements with the hegemony. And this was only the beginning. The eye had fractured within hours of the news. Their species had always been divided between those who served the willingly and those who served because they had no choice. Now the proof of what they had been used for gave the reluctant faction power they had never had before. Civil war began before the first Terran ship left Ascendancy Prime. High Sovereign A requests an audience. Marine reported. She says he proposal. Looked at, he shrugged. Let her talk. Words cannot hurt us now. They met in a small conference room that had survived the fighting. A sat on one side of the table, her massive body folded into a shape that might have been submission on A, and sat on the other side with two Marines standing guard at the door. You have one, said. Her translator gave the words a flat tone, but something like exhaustion lived beneath them. The hegemony is finished. It will take time for the final collapse, but the result is certain. You have destroyed an empire that stood for 10,000 years. We did not destroy it, replied. You destroyed it. We simply made sure the galaxy saw what you really were. A's mandibles clicked softly. I underestimated you. All of us did. We saw your short lives and your small bodies and your primitive technology, and we thought you were nothing. We were wrong. Yes, you were. I have a proposal. A leaned forward slightly. The hegemony has resources, ships, weapons, technology, knowledge, accumulated over thousands of years. When it falls, there will be chaos. Warlords will fight over the pieces. Billions will die unless someone steps in to maintain order. Understood immediately. You want us to take control. You want humans to inherit the hegemony. You have proven your strength. The galaxy will fear you now. Fear is the foundation of power. You could rule in our place, and the transition would be smooth. No chaos, no war, just a chain of masters. Laughed. It was a harsh sound, empty of humor. You think we want to be you? A's compound eyes focused on him. Every species wants power. Every species wants to rule. This is the nature of life. No stood and walked to the viewport. Outside, stars burned in the endless darkness. Worlds circled those stars, holding billions of beings who were learning right now that their rulers had been murderers. Earth taught us something different. On our world, the species that tried to dominate everything went extinct. The dinosaurs, the great apes, 100 other creatures that thought they were the masters of nature, they are all gone. Now, he turned back to face the ruler. Humans survived because we adapted, because we cooperated, because we learned that fighting against everything was a path to destruction. We do not want to rule the galaxy, we want to live in it. A made a sound that might have been disbelief. You are naive. Without central authority, the galaxy will collapse into endless conflict. Maybe said, or maybe the species you conquered will learn to cooperate without being forced. Maybe they will build something better than what you created, something based on choice instead of fear. That is fantasy. Perhaps, but it is a fantasy worth Trying stood and smoothed her torn dress. Your proposal is rejected. High Sovereign, the Terran Republic does not seek empire, we seek partnership with species that share our values, freedom, justice, the right of all beings to choose their own future. She turned toward the door, then paused, and looked back. You will face trial for what you did. Here, the murdered delegates will have justice. Their families will know that their deaths meant something, and the galaxy will learn that power without conscience leads only to ruin. A sat in silence as they left. Her compound eyes stared at the viewport, at the stars she had once thought belonged to her people. 10,000 years of history reduced to ashes by a single miscalculation. She had thought humans were weak. She had been wrong. In the corridors of Ascendancy Prime, the work of recovery continued. The dead were identified and prepared for return. To there, the survivors gave statements that would become part of the historical record. The damaged sections were sealed and marked for repair. Walked through the chaos without destination. His body was running on adrenaline and training, but both were fading. He needed rest. He needed time to process what had happened. He needed to remember that he was still human, not just a weapon that had been aimed and fired. A delegate blocked his path. The alien's metal body was scratched and dented, but her optical sensors glowed with something that might have been gratitude. You saved us, she said. Her voice came from speakers built into her chest, mechanical but somehow warm. When the eye came, we all thought we would die, but you stood and fought. I was doing my job. No, you were doing something more. The reached out and touched his arm with a gentle metal hand. The story said humans were violent and primitive, dangerous. We believed those stories because they told us to believe them, but now we have seen the truth. What truth? That humans are dangerous because you protect those who cannot protect themselves, that your violence is not random cruelty, but focused defense of the weak, that you are exactly what they were supposed to be and never were. That step back, the galaxy will remember this day, and when we rebuild, we will remember who stood with us when everything burned. She walked away, leaving alone in the corridor. He thought about her words as he found his way back to Ambassador. Protection, defense, using violence to shield the helpless from those who would harm them. That was what humans had evolved to do. Not conquest, not domination, just the simple, terrible duty of standing between the innocent and those who would destroy them. Earth had taught them that lesson. Through millions of years of predation and disaster, it had burned the truth into their genes, made it part of what they were. Humans survived because they fought for each other. Humans endured because they never abandoned their own. And now they would teach the galaxy the same lesson, one species at a time. 5 years passed like water flowing through stones. The galaxy changed in ways that no one had predicted, and the species that lived among the stars learned lessons they would never forget. The hegemony did not die quickly. Empires never do, but it died completely, fracturing into a dozen remnant states that fought each other for scraps of the old power. High Sovereign of faced trial on 17 worlds, each one demanding justice for the delegates murdered at Ascendancy Prime. She died in a prison cell on her compound, eyes finally closing on a galaxy that no longer feared her. The Civil War lasted 3 years. When it ended, the fanatics who had served as assassins were gone, killed by their own people or driven into exile. The new government issued formal apologies to every species that had lost citizens in the massacre. They could not undo what had been done, but they could acknowledge it. The Galactic conquered, reformed under new principles. No single species would dominate, no empire would arise to crush the freedom of others. Decisions would be made by consensus with every voice counted equally. It was not a perfect system, but it was better than what had come before. Ambassador Park stood at the center of it all. She had risen through the ranks of Terran diplomacy with a speed that surprised no one who had been at Ascendancy Prime. Her calm in crisis, her quick thinking, her willingness to take risks for the right cause had made her a legend. Now she stood on a stage on the neutral world of 7, about to take an oath that would change history. Secretary General of the Galactic conquered, the previous holder of the title announced, his voice carrying across the vast assembly hall. For the first time, this position will be held by a human. Park of the Terran Republic, do you accept this responsibility? Stepped forward. Her dress was formal, dark blue with silver trim, the same color she had worn on the day everything changed. Her voice was clear and strong. As she spoke, I accept, and I promise to serve all species equally, without favor or fear. The applause was thunderous. Delegates from 1,000 worlds rose to their feet, their various forms of hands and tentacles and energy fields making sounds of approval. Among them were and 100 others, species that had once been conquered and were now free. In the back of the hall, watched without applause, he stood in the shadows near an exit, his eyes moving constantly across the crowd. Old habits never died, and he had developed new ones in the years since Ascendancy Prime. He had refused every medal the Terran Republic tried to give him. He had declined every offer of promotion, every assignment that would put him in front of cameras. He was not interested in fame or recognition. He was interested in work. After the ceremony, found him waiting in a quiet corridor. She had changed in 5 years, her hair showing threads of gray, and her face carrying lines that had not been there before. But her eyes were the same, sharpened, warm and wise. You could have stood with me, she said. You earned a place on that stage as much as anyone. Shrugged. I am not a diplomat, I am a bodyguard. The stage is for people like you, the shadows are for people like me. You are more than a bodyguard, you are a symbol, the human who broke the hegemony. I did not break anything, I protected my charge. That is all I have ever done. He looked at her with eyes that had seen too much death and come to peace with it. The galaxy does not need more symbols, it needs people who do the work without asking for thanks. Smiled sadly. Where will you go now? There is a new posting on the frontier. A young diplomat going to negotiate with a species that has never met humans before. She needs someone to watch her back. Another ambassador. Another chance to do the work right. Straightened his jacket, checking the fit of the pistol hidden beneath it. The galaxy is safer than it was, but it is not safe. There are still species that think violence is the only language. There are still threats that require someone willing to stand in front of them. And you will be that someone. I am a. It is what we do. He turned to leave but caught his arm. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for everything. For saving my life, for giving us this chance, for being the kind of human that makes me proud of our species." Pause, something softened in his face. "Just for a moment. We come from a world that tried to kill us every day," he said. "We learned to survive by protecting each other, by standing together when everything wanted us dead. That is the human legacy, not violence for its own sake, but violence in service of something greater." He smiled just slightly. "The galaxy will remember what we showed them at Ascendancy Prime. They will remember that humans are dangerous, but they will also remember why." He walked away, his footsteps fading into silence. The corridor was empty, the celebration distant, the future uncertain, but did not mind uncertainty. He had lived with it all his life. In the assembly hall, Secretary General Park began her first speech. She spoke of cooperation and hope, of rebuilding what had been broken and creating something new. She spoke of the dead who had given their lives so that the living could be free. She spoke of humanity, not as conquerors or rulers, but as partners in a galaxy that was finally learning to trust. And in the shadows, a bodyguard walked toward his next assignment, another diplomat to protect, another world to visit, another chance to show the galaxy what humans really were. Not monsters, not savages, just survivors. The stars burned on, ancient and patient. They had seen empires rise and fall, species flourish and fade. They would see more in the ages to come, but for now, in this moment, they witnessed something new. A species had taken its place among the cosmos, not through conquest, but through courage, not through domination, but through defense of the weak. They had shown that strength was not about crushing others, but about lifting them up. The human legacy was written in the stars now. It would never be erased. And somewhere on the frontier stepped onto a ship heading for unknown space the young diplomat he was assigned to protect looked nervous. She was fresh from the academy, untested, uncertain of her place in the galaxy. "First posting?" asked. She nodded. "Is it always this frightening?" "Yes." He checked the ship's security systems, memorizing layouts and exit routes, "but you learn to work through the fear. That is what makes humans special. We are always afraid, but we go forward anyway." The ship lifted off, carrying them toward tomorrow. Behind them, the Galactic Concord continued its slow work of building peace. Before them, unknown challenges waited, but they would face them together, human and alien, diplomat and soldier, hope and caution. That was the way of the new galaxy. That was the human legacy. And it was only beginning.